Welcome everyone. It is noon and I'd like to get started on time with this new webinar covering our Master of Public Service and Administration program. This is our second in a series of webinars. If you weren't able to join us last week, we had an overview webinar that covered all of our degrees, a lot of our resources, had a little bit of information from a current student, but we're going to delve into a little bit more detail in this webinar and the ones that are following this that will cover our Master of International Affairs and our Master of International Policy this week. So sit back and enjoy. And if you do have questions for us, specifically for the MPSA, maybe some of the background you have, or you're curious how this might differ from another program, be sure to drop those chat questions in the webinar and we will direct them when we can. It may not be right when you put it in there, but we certainly will cover it later in this webinar. And this is not showing. I may have to start over with my share. There we go. Okay, so presenters, you've got myself, Catherine Meyer. I'm Director of Admissions and Recruitment and have been with the Bush School here for nearly 20 years. So I've watched it grow and expand, and this is exciting to see all the different elements that we've grown to. New today with us is Ashley Renterode. She is our new Assistant Director of Career Services. So she'll be covering some of the aspects of how we support our students in that category with some of our webinars and review for your resumes and so forth. So she'll join us a little bit later, as will two of our current MPSA students, Rebecca Barfield and Alexis Benedict, and they will probably cover about the last 10 to 15 minutes of this section. So the agenda today, I'm going to cover the different degrees that we offer that are related to the MPSA degree and the degree itself. We'll cover the tracks and concentrations, the curriculum overview, the capstone projects that our students do. We'll also cover some of the student resources, the employment. I'll cover briefly the application process and what you need to be qualified for this program. We'll cover costs and aid that we grant to our MPSA students. And then, as I said, we'll go to our student perspective. So we're going to start with just one generic slide of what is the Bush School of Government and Public Service. One thing that we are new this year is we are also an undergrad program now. We were able to take in political science and international studies undergraduate programs, which also expanded out to a PhD with the poli-sci program. And so now we house not only our Bush School master's programs, but we house those undergrad and that PhD program. So we have tripled, quadrupled something in size by adding all these new students to this Bush School location, which has really given us new opportunity because we are planning to expand a new undergrad bachelor's of public service in the next coming years. So that'll be exciting to watch for. But as a little bit of background, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. We opened in 1997. We have roughly 2,500 alumni who have graduated from this program now. 5 of the degrees that we offer here in College Station. We were going to talk about a couple of those. And then we've got the one executive online degree that we'll talk about, the EMPSA. We also have 6 graduate certificates and 2 DC degrees that now offer a certificate there as well. So that new DC location, we're actually covering on Thursday through their webinar. They tend to be international affairs related. Just as a whole, we are preparing students for careers in a number of different career sectors, including nonprofits, government, state, local, federal, government contracting, think tanks, just so many options out there. So students really can find the niche of where they want to go and prepare for that. So specifically the Master of Public Service and Administration, this is a 2-year, 48 credit hour degree. And it has an incredible amount of flexibility where you can take the core courses and build those with your track courses and then build upon that with your electives to create this degree that's specific to you. So you're going to receive faculty and career staff advising, every step along the way. So as you come up with questions, you talk to your fellow colleagues, you take a class that interests you, a speaker who comes in, there's some flexibility in being able to change your path. Even though students sometimes come in thinking, I really want to do state and local government, and then walk away and have focused on nonprofits. So you do have that growth opportunity within this program. You're also completing a relevant summer internship of your choosing. So you'll work with our career services office for that, in getting some leads, building up on your own leads, figuring out where you want to be, what industry you want to be in, and we'll make that relevant for you. You're also collaborating in this degree for a 1-year capstone project. So this project will go into more detail later, but you do have some say-so in what it is you're focused on in this group. Client-based consulting project. And then there's optional opportunity for you to earn a graduate certificate. And it's to highlight your study. And I'll go into more detail in about 2 or 3 slides. But basically, the other part of the flexibility with this degree is that it is offered on campus here in College Station. But because we offer an executive Master of Public Service online, it does create an opportunity for you to take some of your courses online if you choose to need that. Some students just find out that, if I can do 2 classes in person, but maybe I want to stay full time and do another 1 or 2 classes online just to work with their work schedule better, then they're willing to pay a little bit more costs. It is $1,500 more per online class on top of what you're already paying for the tuition and fees. But it does give you some options. And keep in mind, this only applies to electives because the core courses do need to be taken here on campus. So the MPSA has recently received some rankings back from the U.S. News and World Report. They do rankings for the public service and administration, public policy, public affairs type schools, and we came in number 23 in the best public affairs programs. So that puts us in the top 10% nationally. And then they also do subgroups, and there are a couple categories that we have that match some of what they do. And so you'll see those with Homeland Security, number 5, 13 in public management, 15 in nonprofit management, and 21 in local government. So we do have the backing of the NASPA accreditation, which is a group that we belong to, that most of the large, well-developed programs in public administration, public affairs are part of. So let's talk just a minute about the on-campus MPSA degree that we have with our Texas A&M students. So this is just a snippet of bringing in some joint degree students who are already in a couple of the departments here at Texas A&M. So what we've done is worked with these departments and came up with agreements that these students, as they're working in undergrad, can start taking classes by their senior year with us. And so it's also called a 3+2 program because they're doing 3 years in undergrad and 2 years in grad school. Sometimes it becomes a 2-2. Students are coming in so quickly with so many AP credits and testing credits that they are able to make this a 2-year undergrad and a 2-year master's degree. So whatever the case works, we work with political science, economics, sociology, ag econ, and then rangeland, wildlife, and fisheries management. And so these students will work with their undergraduate advisors. They must have at least a 3.25 GPA or better. They apply as juniors somewhere around that 70 to 80 hour mark because they enroll with us when they're at 102 hours or more. And so what allows them to do is to take about 14 to 18 of their Bush School credits can also count towards their undergrad. So they're saving some money and some time by being able to double count those classes. They also pay undergrad costs, so there's where that cost savings comes from. And they get to apply with an internal app, so there's no application fee. And again, they're saving that time with getting both degrees in either 5 years or for a select few, 4 years. So they can get out into that workforce and just basically get to a meaningful career faster. Typically, we're enrolling about a dozen students. So there may be a handful from political science, maybe 1 or 2 from sociology, economics. This varies from year to year, but on average, it is around a dozen students we bring in out of a class of about 85 to 90 for the Master of Public Service. So you'll see quite a few Texas A&M students who are coming in out of this program. Now, there's another opportunity that is also when students come into this Master of Public Service that maybe they have a focus on a certain area and find a passion where they want to do a PhD. So I'm only going to take a few minutes on this. It doesn't involve a lot of our students, but it is a handful who might want to do a PhD, let's say in this education policy. So what students will do is they'll start with the Master of Public Service, and in their second semester with us by February, they're also applying for this educational administration and human resources development, this department, and they're applying for enrollment by the summer so that by their second year, they're taking classes that might also involve with that PhD program. So basically, this is 111 credit hours, not our typical 48. So it's going to take them about 5 years to complete this. You can see how the breakout of those courses look. But these are people who are serious about an interest in education policy research, doing consulting work, working with education agencies of all types. So we do have students who come to our program who might be former teachers who just develop a passion for making education accessible. And so they find this pathway and they'll continue on after starting with us into this PhD program. There's also a similar program with health policy. So these students work with the School of Public Health here at A&M. Same thing, it's about 111 credit hours, it takes them about 5 years to do it. But when they apply to this program, it depends on this odd number of years. So even years, they're applying in the spring of their first year. Odd years, they're applying in the fall of their second year. So you're still working on the progress towards your Master of Public Service degree, but you found a passion for this health policy and you can do this PhD research-oriented program. We also have health policy as one of our concentrations in the Master of Public Service. So if you're still interested in health policy but don't want the PhD, there is an option for that. So I mentioned this earlier, the online Executive Master of Public Service Administration. This is a degree that is online. It is made for working professionals. We offer 3 tracks in it, so it's a little bit different than what our Master of Public Service on campus does. It's for 2 to 3 years to complete it. It's 39 credit hours, so a little bit less than our 48 credit hours for the MPSA. And it does require 5 years full-time public service experience, and 3 years of that have to be in mid to upper management roles. So there are students who've been applying to this program who aren't yet qualified. And so you've got to take a little bit of time out and work for a few years before you can do this online degree. They do run what are called rolling applications. It's for the fall, the spring, and summer entry. They do have a requirement for the capstone project, just like what we do for the MPSA. And you are working for a client, and some of that might be online work. But courses are 100% online, excluding there will be 2 opportunities for a 1-week residency where you come to College Station and get to meet some of your online classmates. And so they've done that purposefully where we'll have some courses that you'll complete while you're here, get a little bit of that networking connection, get to know some professors face-to-face, the administration you're working for. But the rest of it is all online. So a lot of people do find that flexibility highly fitting to their lifestyle. And you can transfer up to 12 credit hours from one of our certificates. Specifically, they've mentioned the Homeland Security, Nonprofit Management, and Public Management, which I cover right here. So graduate certificates are another way for students who might want just a taste of a degree, or maybe they're coming in off cycle, and maybe one of our degrees only admits in the fall. And so this is something they can do in the spring or the summer to keep active with their academics. And so there's a number of different certificates. They do those rolling admissions, fall, spring, and summer entry. You can focus on nonprofit management, public management, Homeland Security. And on the other side of the house, we have one for international affairs. There's also geospatial intelligence and cybersecurity policy. So these certificates can complement your MPSA. especially with the focused coursework that you could do. Some of them don't cost you much more money than the application fee, especially if you align your courses. So let's say a person comes in with a Master of Public Service in Administration, and they're focusing on nonprofit management. Then just make sure that the 4 courses you're taking for your tracks and electives in the MPSA also align with the certificate, and you've applied and been accepted to that certificate. Then once you complete those 4 courses, you get to earn that certificate in nonprofit management. Same thing with the Homeland Security. I've seen that one quite often. And then maybe someone comes in and focuses on the Master of Public Service with National Defense and wants to get a certificate in Advanced International Affairs because they like the title of that to go with their domestic-oriented degree. And that could possibly work as well. That's working with your advisors and just making sure that everything aligns the right way. So these can be completed online or on campus. There are focus areas within these certificates. So for instance, in the Homeland Security, you can focus on emergency management and crisis preparedness. That's a mouthful. And remember, as Texas A&M seniors, you guys can enroll early. Otherwise, you will need to have your bachelor's degree in hand. So to focus now specifically, the Master of Public Service, we offer what are called tracks and elective concentrations. So when you come into this program, you will have to declare a track. That's public management, public policy analysis, or nonprofit management. The concentrations you see listed in blue here, those are elective. Some students choose to really focus on an area that they develop specialty, maybe even 2 areas. And that works great for them. Others say, I really don't want to develop a concentration at all. Maybe I want to do public management and public policy and do 2 tracks. And that is okay too. There's also people who come in and say, I don't really see the area that I want to develop, but may I develop a focus on agricultural policy or transportation and housing issues? And yes, because we have individually designed concentrations. So you will work with your advisor, you'll work with your department in ensuring that the classes you're taking outside of the Bush School can help you develop that specialty. And I've listed some of those connections here. So tailoring your degree with your interest, we have a number of different departments that are already listed on our curriculum. And this is all found on the website under the MPSA curriculum section under academics. And you can see those classes for those specific areas. And if it doesn't say PSAA, which is for Public Service Administration, it might say econ, or it might say geography. And those classes that are being offered from other departments will fit into that degree plan. So I'm not going to read all these off, but you can see some of the common ones here are ag leadership education, management information systems, especially if you're doing cyber, recreation, park, and tourism sciences has some classes that our students have found helpful in some of the areas, urban planning, public health, the list goes on and on. So really you are able to take some tailoring and really develop what you want. So the curriculum looks like this. It's 10 core and track classes and 6 electives. So everything in blue and in the purple are those core courses. Everything in black are those electives that you're choosing from, gosh, 60 classes, 40 classes. There's a lot there that you can pick and choose from each semester. Sometimes those are the Master of International Affairs classes too. Occasionally there's some overlap for that. In semester 1, when you get here, there's no choice. Here's the 4 classes you're taking. You just get to choose which professor and what time. But by your 2nd semester in the spring, you do have a choice on the kind of track you're choosing. So the required course that goes with that. And then you can start also taking which quantitative methods course. So because you see quant methods 1, quantitative methods 2, economic analysis, we are looking for students who might have just a basic background in economics, microeconomics, macro, quantitative methods, statistics, and research, just some basic foundation in that. It's not to say that everyone has to have a minor in it or anything really intense, but some familiarity with those types of courses and what's expected out of you is very helpful. We will also provide some opportunity over the summer as students are entering in to give some recommendations of the Khan Academy. That's K-A-H-N Academy. And they have some free online courses where people can go back and brush up on some maybe calculus or statistics, just so it's not, wow, I haven't had this in 4 years. What am I getting myself into? Moments when you get here. So we do have help. The faculty are wonderful. Students often get in groups. They can talk about this later, about how they get through those two quant courses. But really that summer internship, you're working with our career services office the entire time to line something up for that that's relevant to you. And then by the time you start your final year, you're getting into a capstone, which we'll talk about just in a few minutes. And so that makes up really your final year is these electives, courses that are of interest to you. So the capstone is a 1-year project. It's 9 months. You are on team-based consulting projects. So what's going to happen is there are certain faculty who are assigned those capstone projects, and they are going to go out and find a client who needs some consulting work done. And then they're going to give a synopsis out to you guys in a presentation, telling you what it is this client wants done and kind of the gist of what that work is. And then you are coming back through and rank ordering your top choices. So in this case, there may be 8 or so capstone options. You're going to then rank order those, and then someone in the staff member will then help you assign. Well, they're going to assign you one, right? So usually you can get one of your top 2 choices. Leadership and writing staff often work with those capstone groups just to make sure there's a good mesh with that. And then I've listed some of the clients on the next slide, but a lot of these are going to mirror the same sectors as our internships and employment list. So state and local, nonprofit, federal, private. So I just wrote this one out today. This is what from our 22-23. So this is what our students currently at the Bush School are studying. We do have a Texas legislature that involves about 7 students. That's every other year. So Dr. Bowman runs that one. Those students relocate to Austin or working for a legislator while they're also conducting their work. So they've got a double whammy in that semester. And then you've also got one that is the Congressional Research Service that Dr. Kerr is running. You've got one that does more with the Disaster Act, so more about national security. You've got critical infrastructure protection. You've got a nonprofit with an artisan entrepreneur experience. You've got another one that's working with conservation issues with Dr. Graham, and another one that's working with Allies Against Slavery with human trafficking with Dr. Robichaud, who also works within our nonprofits. So there's quite a few choices here for our students to choose from. And you'll see this list sometimes has a few more, but right now this is anywhere between probably 7 to 9 students assigned for each one for that class. And they'll take care of that all year long, and they present that back out to their clients at the end of the semester. So I know there's a question, and James, you have this, is there a way to do your internship during a semester? Do you allow students to go and work for the legislative session? I'm not as sure about the internship opportunities for that. I do believe some students have done some semester-long internships, but they have gotten special approval from the department and or the Career Services Office just to make sure that it hits the parameters of what they need for it to count. I don't know outside of the ones who are doing the capstone project for the legislative session if that has worked. So that might be one that I'll need to get back to you on after talking with the department and or Matt through Career Services. So we'll come back to that one. As far as the student resources, I did mention leadership and writing program works with our capstones, but they're also presenting opportunities for all of our students who are enrolled. So the leadership program, Holly Kasperbauer runs that and runs a number of workshops that deal everything from Myers-Briggs assessments to how to handle stress, time management, all kinds that you will see listed in their volunteer, and you can sign up for those. They're also getting through some self-assessment and development plans that you can work one-on-one for her. Just helps people find direction sometimes when they come in maybe a little lost or are not aware of working in groups as maybe some other groups. So Holly is a great resource for us in this leadership program. If you complete several assignments for her, getting involved, attending a number of workshops, you can also gain what's called a leadership certificate, which many of our students do. We also have a writing program. We've got 2 staff members here who work with this. They're helping you be effective communicators. So they're developing e-profiles and reflections after your internship opportunities. They're coordinating those debriefing reports. They're working with faculty on certain coursework to help you become better writers. It's very important in this program that you write crisply, that you write intelligently, and they're going to work with you one-on-one for this. They're not an editing source. They don't read over your papers per se, but they are there to offer a number of workshops and one-on-one opportunities to help you. Speakers, there's probably, I don't know, 2 to 5 a week, it seems like. Sometimes they're offered on the same day at the same hour, and you got to choose which one you're attending. But these are anywhere from visiting faculty. We have alumni panels who come in and talk, national and regional speakers who share their experiences, just multiple times per week. Sometimes they're more public service oriented, sometimes they're more international, sometimes they're leadership. But you will not have a downtime where you're going, wow, I really wish the Bush School were more involved. There is always something going on here. And then as an opportunity for international travel, faculty typically are going to lead a study abroad trip at least once a year. These are coordinated through our study abroad office. You just look to see what is the context of that study abroad and if it could be worked into your degree plan. We do have MPSA students who attend these. We had just done one last year in May to Israel. We've done a number of them. Every other year tends to be China. I'm looking to see if that's back up and running yet. But we've done Germany, Italy, India, Egypt, just lots more of those. So those are opportunities typically in the spring that you could sign up and get a 3-hour course credit. Just remember, you do have to pay that additional cost for that. The reciprocal exchanges are in place with 4 different countries for language studies. So that tends to be more towards the MIA program. And then there are some capstone classes that might have some travel for field research. A few have done that through the nonprofit capstones, but again, you'll see a presentation for that, and if that, it gives you an opportunity before you sign up for it. Briefly, research centers and institutes. There are a number of our students who do want to delve more into what's out there with the research opportunities. I've listed 3 of our 6 that are more towards the Master of Public Service. This is our Institute for Science, Technology, and Public Policy, which is working with partners through the university, government agencies, and they're coming out with research projects. And they might spend anywhere between 6 months to 3 or 4 years working on these projects. Sometimes they do hire student workers for some of that work, but they'll advertise that if that opportunity is available. The Mosbacher Institute for Trade, Economics, and Public Policy. They offer a summer internship stipend. They're coordinating speakers. They house 2 programs, the Global Value Chains Program and the Borders and Migration Program. Dr. Raymond Robertson runs that institute. He's a wonderful resource if you need to find him on the website under the faculty. That's Dr. Raymond Robertson. And I just had a person visit the other day for the Borders and Migration Program. So I'm excited to learn more about that and what opportunities that presents for our students. The one that I've worked with more closely has been the Center for Nonprofits and Philanthropy. This one is helping nonprofits across the community and state with researching, networking. They have a number of different workshops and opportunities for our students just to get involved. And they have shadow boards for students to get involved with some of the nonprofits within the community. So they'll present while students are here, just extra, right? Extra work for you to get that professional experience. All of these have different sponsored speakers who are covering current research, hot button topics, different career aspects. We love the panels in particular for our students just to come in and listen to some. Okay, now to get a break from me for just a few minutes, I'm going to pass this over to Ashley Winterroad, who's going to cover the next few slides and talk to you a little bit about the career and student services and how we support our students.
Howdy all. Thank you, Catherine. As Catherine mentioned, my name is Ashley Winterode. I am the new Assistant Director for Career Programming. And so I'm in Career Services with Dr. Upton and Michael Cochran, who is our Assistant Director for Employer Management, our employer relations. And so what he does specifically is he brings in employers who come to the Bush School to meet and talk to Bush School students about what the processes can look like for getting hired, and what that looks like on an individual company basis. We have nonprofits that come in. We have various members of the IC, the intelligence community, who come in. We have different cities who come in as well. And so that calendar is one of the things that, when Catherine mentioned that there are multiple people here every day, the employer relations side of our student and career services certainly fills that bill sometimes. And we also do professional development and career advising. And one of the opportunities that we provide our students is learning through workshops, specifically about how to enhance your career opportunities. And so I will be facilitating resume workshops, LinkedIn information, networking sometimes in specific niche areas, as well as interviewing and many other workshop opportunities that are tied to this next bullet point for internship funding and notification. We handle that in our office. There are internships that are paid, but there are internships also that are unpaid. And so we at the Bush School, Catherine will talk later about the funding opportunities that are available for our Bush students. And it is incredible, but there is also funding that's available if your internship is unpaid. You have to meet certain requirements to qualify for those. And that tracking is through our office. Getting into specifics about MPSA students and where they are working, the numbers, you can see there's not a whole lot of fluctuation in where our students are going. They're going state and local government, and they're going nonprofits, NGOs for the most part. And this next few slides, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the places that they've gone. And so like our state and local government, we have students who go across Texas, but we also have students who go across the country and across the world, which is incredible whenever they're sitting next to you in a class, because you've been networking with students the whole time. And so you never know who's going to end up in the Ohio Attorney General's office, or who's going to be a San Antonio Housing Authority whenever you need somebody who you can contact if you're in Houston who is working. I think whenever you're looking at federal jobs, our students are generally going Homeland Security, Department of Justice, the Health and Human Services. That's something that's popular with our students who have that public health emphasis in their coursework. We do have students who are going specifically into a nonprofit. They are looking at Baylor and Scott and White. They're doing local nonprofits, or they're doing international nonprofits. And so we have students who are working at the Art Council of Brazos Valley and Houston Food Bank and United Way. And then we have some students who, like that percentage that was shown earlier, that we had like that 21% of students who went private last time. Sometimes they're working in places like Frost Bank and Lewin Group. Sometimes they're doing consulting. It just kind of depends on where they want to end up. And hopefully some of these students are ending up in these positions because they've had a successful internship opportunity.
Before I move on past Ashley, are there any questions about careers or internships? I know I was trying to answer Brady's chat question a few minutes ago, but if you also have other questions for Ashley, you can unmute yourself for just a moment before I move on to funding and scholarships. So feel free to do that. Anybody at all? All right, I don't want to waste too much on the time. Well, I'm going to have Ashley just stay on for a few more minutes and she can help us with questions at the end if something does come up. I'm going to go ahead and move forward and cover the Master Public Service application requirements, and then we'll cover funding. Very simply, we're very similar to other programs in asking for an application and fee, the unofficial transcripts. So remember, we don't have to have those official ones until you decide to enroll with us. It makes it a lot easier for processing. 3 recommendations are going to be needed: a resume, a statement of purpose that is telling us why this pathway, why this program, what's inspired you, what career path you hope to go on to. The GRE test is now optional, but is encouraged if the GPA is below a 3.2, or if you just feel like your experiences aren't reflecting your abilities. There are people out there who are really solid test takers who get bored in class and maybe didn't apply themselves as hard as they could have. So if you're sitting with that 2.8, 3.1 GPA and feel like a GRE test could help you, certainly please do so. I'm also asked many times by people who not necessarily want to go take the GRE, but they ask, are there any benefits of it? I will say that submitting a GRE test, if you are comfortable with testing, or if you've studied and prepped for it, and you can present something that's close to our average, which we'll talk about in a second, it's not going to hurt you. It certainly can help, because if you can imagine academics, these faculty, they're on the committee, they love numbers and they love seeing a good GPA with a good GRE test. We don't require it anymore, and that's been for a number of years now. But if you think it can help, do it. And if you don't like the test score, you can always ask Ashley later to pull that in admissions, and we can have that taken out. And that's going to be Ashley Treadway, who works with me in the admissions office. But we've also have those that are not domestic students. So these international students, if you have not already met your English proficiency in some way, we will have to have TOEFL or IELTS scores, or there's a number of ways you can hit that. Those updates are all found on the website. And if you do have questions, you can email Ashley Treadway at bushvilleapplications@tamu.edu, and she can help you with any questions about the process, requirements. This isn't uploading, this isn't working. She will be there to help you. Our timeline is we opened the application in August, so it's been open already. We began the application process as they're coming in. So Ashley will regularly send out emails to those that have started the application just to let her know, hey, you can reach out to me if I can help. Just to remind students to keep moving forward on it. We have a priority deadline of December 15th. We like to push that deadline as a funding deadline because we need time for processing. Our faculty are going to start looking at these files in January. And if everyone waits until January 11th to submit them to us, then we have that many more to process, and we just can't turn them around that fast. So we really hope that you would help us out and submit by that December 15th priority deadline, but you do have until January 11th. We begin those file reviews with faculty. They'll determine if they want to extend that deadline at that time. Many times they do, but there's no guarantees that we'll get the application processed in time to get you into that first group to be reviewed for all the funding that we have. So always better to do it earlier, but you're just not going to get a decision from us until around that March. We conduct what are called the interviews, February, all month. So in January, we're going to send out invitations for you to interview with us. Hopefully you can come to our campus for our interview conference weekend. We're going to hold that this year, 17th and 18th of February. If those that cannot come, we will set up alternate interviews via Zoom with 2 of our faculty or faculty and staff. But you have to interview in order to move forward. We then go back in March and make those final decisions of who's admitted and how much funding is coming with your offer. And then you guys have until April 15th to respond back with a decision. And that's true of just about every major university across the nation is hitting that April 15th deadline. After that date, we are starting to set up a Facebook class page so that you can connect with your fellow classmates. People will start setting up a housing sheet, finding roommates, all the kinds of updates and fun stuff over the summer, just to learn more about the traditions here at A&M, what it's like to tailgate, all those fun stuff. But again, this admissions information is on our website under the admissions section across the top. If you're curious, what did the class of 2024 look like? The enrollment, we had around 95, 96 at one point, but summer was hard on us this year. We ended up with an enrollment of 84. Some of that has to do with some international students who could not get their visas and processing. Some of it was just a change of heart, who knows? Either way, it was an 84 class. We always aim for around 90 each year. The GPA this year is really strong. This is probably the strongest I've seen in nearly the 20 years I've been here. So it's a 3.63 GPA. Now, if you're well below that, don't get discouraged. There's always ways to make up for it, but it just shows that the quality of the people who are applying, they usually do well in school and they continue that path. For the ones that do submit a GRE, this gets skewed because if you're a good test taker, you want to do it. So it's a 311. If you can get above a 300 or better, that's going to still put you in a pretty good category. So aim for as best you can if you are going to do the GRE. If it's below a 300, you might want to reconsider not having it count. Average age for this class was 24. Women were 48%. Students of color were 33%. Internationals ended up at 12%. I think we were at 17 or 18 at one point. Non-residents was 29, which is really low for this class, but we did have quite a large number of Texas A&M and Texas applicants here. So average work experience, this has been running about the norm. 0 to 2 years of those coming in is about 60% of our makeup. So while we love for students to have some experience, not everyone waits. Many of them just come straight in or soon after because they know this is the pathway to get those jobs they want and they need those networking connections. Professors here is a mix of seasoned practitioners and researchers, those academics. So you're going to get a good mix of different class and viewpoints when you're taking this for the next 2 years. And then people ask about the average class size. So most of our classes max out at around 20. Some of them are probably the average is around 16. Some of them I've seen as few as 5. So it really depends on what kinds of classes and pathway you're taking as to what the mix will look like in your course. And then the last part here before I turn it over to the students to talk is the Master Public Service Cost and Aid. So as a reminder, anyone who is admitted to this Master Public Service Administration program receives some level of scholarship from the Bush School. Either that or it's going to be nominations for things that are being offered through Texas A&M sponsorships. So 100% of our incoming full-time MPSA students are covered with some scholarship between $1,000 or for those higher end ones, they're nearly worth $29,000 a year. So I did the breakout. Students between 1,000 to 3,000 covered 27% of our class. Those that got 5,000 to 7,000 was half of the class. So that's where most of them fall. And then the 10,000 and 11,000, you'll just see there's not as many students who are able to get that. We can't fund as many students because we're stretching it to cover everyone. So remember, in your first year, you're just coming in with scholarship help. And those go up to about 15,000 for the Bush School. And most are 3 as the lowest. The graduate assistantship opportunities that you'll hear many schools talk about, we do have them, but they're only available for their second year students. It's a way for a student who maybe came in with 5,000 to increase their opportunity in year 2. So we will have you guys apply for those in the spring of your first year. And then you'll know if coming in for your second year, if you received a graduate assistantship. If you do, you have to give up that first year scholarship. You can't double dip from the same Bush School funding. But if you got a graduate assistantship outside of the Bush School, maybe you're working with the SGA, maybe you're working with resident housing. And in that case, that is not our funding. You are welcome to keep both of them, both Bush School funding and the assistantship. And then Ashley had hit this earlier. We do have some internship scholarships available for those who receive an internship with no funding. But to qualify for that, you do have to attend their workshops. So it's an easy thing to meet. Most people want to attend those workshops. They're very helpful. But that way, maybe you choose an internship that's more of interest to you than something that paid. And then as the cost, we are a best value education. If you are coming in from out of state, because you are receiving a scholarship from us, you are also receiving our non-resident waiver. And that non-resident waiver is worth about $12,700 right now. So instead of paying $27,000, you're paying really closer to around that $13,500 before whatever level of scholarship kicks in. So we really are a cost-effective as a public institution, as a tier 1 university. And then if you're curious, I don't know what your cost of living might be where you are, but we are costing around $20,000 to $22,000. So I've listed it here at 21. And having said that, now I'm going to pass this off to my GA Stockton. And Stockton is going to work with two of our second-year students who are coming in, and he'll introduce them in a second. And we're just going to talk a little bit about our opportunities for involvement and what it's like to be a student here. So again, if you've got questions, please jot those in the chat and we'll be monitoring those and ask them of our current students. Stockton, all yours.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Howdy, y'all. My name's Stockton. I am a second-year national security and diplomacy student. So I'm actually on the international affairs track. So I'll just talk a little bit about involvement here and then let you hear from two students who are currently in the public service program right now. So real quickly, just some opportunities for involvement at the Bush School. You have the Public Service Organization, which basically focuses around doing different service events throughout the community. Another kind of section of that involves the Bush Board Fellows, and so you can also get involved with a local nonprofit and serve on their board. Next up, you have SGA, so that involves tailgates, international connections, athletics, different issues like that. It's probably pretty similar to any SGAs that you have at your school. And then we have Ambassadors Council, which I actually head up. And so from Ambassadors Council, you're actually able to work different events at the Bush School. You work with donors and any high-level guests that we have come in. Foreign Language and Cultural Society, basically this focus is on setting up language groups and doing different cultural activities, sometimes working with international students there. And then Alexander Hamilton Society and John Quincy Adams Society both focus on foreign relations and how to basically just expand your network. They have a national branch, both of those. And so it's really about making connections in that sphere. And then of course, book clubs and different discussions, and then various career clubs such as the Ready Room, which focuses on intelligence, or possibly like the fundraising club, just kind of different initiatives there. And so I'll go ahead and hand it off to Rebecca Barfield and kind of let her introduce herself, and then we'll move on to Alexis after that.
Hey y'all, my name is Rebecca Barfield. I'm a second-year MPSA student. I am currently on the public management track with a concentration in education policy and management. Let's see, I am from Bristol, Virginia in Appalachia, and I studied at Mississippi State University for undergrad. I studied political science and philosophy. And then my track here to the Bush School actually came through serving with AmeriCorps in California for 2 years after I graduated. I worked at elementary schools in the Bay Area and got really interested in education policy and equity and started looking at public universities that had public administration programs that I could go to. And that's how I found the Bush School, and that's how I ended up here. Alexis?
Hey y'all, my name is Alexis Benedict, and I'm also a second-year MPSA student on the public management track. I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina, and for my undergrad, I went to a small liberal arts college in Tennessee called Sewanee, and while I was there, I majored in anthropology and then minored in education. I initially thought I wanted to be a teacher, and so I went into an AmeriCorps program, which is actually the same one that Rebecca did, but I did it in San Antonio. And I worked at a high school, not an elementary school. And then from there, I realized I would rather work in nonprofits. And so I spent about 4 years working in various education-based nonprofits before coming back to school. And then while I was there, I really became more interested in, the policy and the government programs that affect nonprofits. And that's how I found the Bush School.
And so Alexis and Rebecca, do you guys have any advice for our SA students that are applying to the Bush School?
Some advice that I have is once you get to the interview portion stage, to really take advantage of the fact that you're interviewing with faculty and staff members here. One of the things I've enjoyed most about the Bush School is how accessible the faculty are and how they remember the students they've interacted with. So the professors that interviewed me during my interview for the Bush School remembered me when I came here, and have checked in with me ever since. And that's something I really value. So I would make the most of that interview and getting to know faculty like from the jump. And if you have questions, ask them. They were very honest with me in my interview about some questions I had about Texas and A&M and the Bush School and all of that. So yeah, make the most of that interview process.
The advice I would give, so for me personally, I was not a super strong student in my undergrad studies. So one thing that I really focused on in my application was my work experience and then kind of my journey of what interested me in public service. And I really think that that helped with my application standing up, just because, academics is really not my strong suit.
All right, thanks, y'all. For me, I'll give some advice on this because we all go through very similar application processes on both sides. But I would definitely encourage you to really look up kind of the course offerings at the Bush School, the faculty that we have on the website. It's very apparent in our applications if you've done the research on the school. And so making sure that you individualize your application, whether it's here at the Bush School or if you're applying other places. It is noticeable when students submit possibly similar essay responses that are very broad and generalized. And so making sure that you go on and say, okay, well, I really want to study, this area, and I've seen that the Bush School has these two faculty that their research interests me. And so making sure that you're showing that you're interested in the Bush School, that you've done your research on it. It really is something that I think makes applications stand out quite a bit more, and it really makes us want to advance you onto that interview process. And so I would really encourage that. And I think with that, I'll hand it back to Catherine.
I don't know that there is too much more to add to that application process and making yourself. I know we've got more opportunities for admissions to cover that with a webinar we're offering later in early October. But Alexis and Rebecca, can you talk a little about what you guys did for your internship opportunity or in picking your capstone? Pick either one of those or cover them both. Just anything you think is worth mentioning.
Sure. For my internship, I actually got, since I had 2 years of relevant work experience in between undergrad and grad school, I got my internship waived, but I got to spend the summer working at my current job and learning. I'm a learning specialist for the athletics department, so I got to stay there and honestly utilized a lot of the management and people skills that I've worked on here at the Bush School in that role. And then when I was picking my capstone, I'm currently working for Dr. Davis's capstone with the Harris County Division of Emergency Management. Basically, it's a project in response to a Senate bill that was passed to help the medically fragile during natural disasters here in Texas, and specifically in Harris County. So I picked that capstone because I'm very interested in accessibility and improving conditions for all people in this state. And so as a public management student and someone interested in equity, that project was really appealing to me. So that's why I am in Dr. Davis's capstone.
So the internship that I did this summer, and I'm currently still doing it, is I work for HR with the Federal Aviation Administration. I was actually placed with the Alaska and Pacific Northwest region based in Seattle. So it's remote, obviously. I didn't move out there for the summer. And so kind of what drew me to that is I'm interested in working for a federal agency, in particular public affairs, which, is different from HR. But I took it just because I figured any work experience is good experience. And so that's been interesting, just learning what it's like to work in a federal agency. And then my capstone that I chose was with Dr. Brown, and it's kind of focused on social entrepreneurship and women's empowerment in Oaxaca, Mexico. And so we're actually going to be traveling to Oaxaca in January to kind of meet our clients. And really what drew me to it was, as an anthropology major, I'm really interested just in learning about cultures and everything, and just seeing how these different nonprofits within that region are helping these women with social entrepreneurship and empowerment.
Great, thank you. It's always exciting to learn what y'all have been able to take for those internships and or why you chose the capstone. There's so many choices for this. As we get ready, we've got about 4 minutes. I'm going to have you pick on 2 things. One is anything about the community or the school environment that really spoke to you or still speaks to you in having chosen the Bush School, maybe over another school, and then any advice that you'd like to offer.
So what really spoke to me about A&M and the Bush School and why I chose here is because I wanted to attend a public administration program at a public university. I really enjoyed my time at Mississippi State and wanted to continue that sort of experience. But I was really struck by how the Bush Schools program was accessible and affordable and really diverse compared to a lot of public administration programs that I looked at. And that's something that's really important to me going into public management and education policy. I really wanted to learn from a diverse group of people with a diverse group of people. So that is why I picked the Bush School in particular. And as far as advice that I'd offer a prospect, I guess I kind of already gave the advice I had, which was to get to know the faculty. But if you get the chance to visit the Bush School before you commit to coming here, I think that is a really good idea, because once you see the campus and you see the building and meet a few of the people, you'll fall in love with it, just like I did.
So for me, the thing that made me choose A&M was the sense of community. So I actually almost went to the University of Georgia with their MPA program, and I actually ended up choosing A&M over that program just because I didn't get the same sense of community that the Bush School seems to offer. Everyone is just really friendly, always willing to help each other out, and there's always also, a bunch of social stuff going on, which as someone who didn't know anyone when I moved to A&M, that was an important part for me. And really any advice I'd offer is pretty similar to Rebecca's. Just come visit the school, and also don't be afraid to reach out to any current students. I feel like Bushies are probably some of the friendliest people you ever meet.
Agreed. All right, so we're going to try to wrap this up. There've been a couple of questions in the chat, and I did want to hit one of these that was asked about getting to know the other students outside of the cohort. And there's always opportunities with organizations getting involved in and events for speakers and potlucks and tailgating and just cross athletics, like we did a kickball game with first years versus second years. And sometimes you'll see events where maybe MPSA versus IA, and just all kinds of things of really getting to know your classmates. These are developing lifelong friendships forever. And then the other question had been about, do all MPSA students receive the out-of-state waivers if they are coming in out of state? And yes, that is true. So if you are receiving a scholarship from us, which we do, then you will have that opportunity. All right, so having answered those kind of questions, you are welcome to email me at any point. I'm in that yellow section, bushschooladmissions@tamu.edu. Ashley and I will man that phone number 979-862-3476. You can also, if you're interested in the certificates or in the EMPSA, you can reach them at that number in Bushkill Online. And then lastly, I'm going to put these attending upcoming events. So I do have a webinar tomorrow over the MIA and the combined degrees. Thursday, we're going to combine with the DC location for their international affairs focus degrees. Tuesday, September 27th, if you want to hear more from the students, we're going to have Stockton leading that and talking in depth about student life for the whole hour. And then we'll have admissions on October the 4th, career on October the 19th. So these will probably be a little shorter in length, but they delve into that detail a lot more. And then I'll cover financial aid and what it's like to apply for funds in grad school. You've also got Zoom Q&A hours. I have one coming up on Friday at 11 a.m. If you just want to drop in, Stockton and I will be manning that. Just come in with your questions. It is on the website for that Zoom link. Just click on it and you're ready to go. And then we'll have some other events that are on the calendar. And then I've got open houses if you want to come to College Station. Those are going to be held from 1 to 3 on these Fridays that are listed here. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. There is a question: is it common for students to pursue 2 degrees, such an MPSA and an MIA, sequentially or semi-simultaneously? No. Students usually do one or the other because you don't necessarily need to spend 2 more years building on another degree. You can cross over some of your classes out of the other. So many will do maybe a certificate with a degree, but not both degrees at the same time. So hope that answers that. So we are at 1:02. I'm going to wrap this up. I thank you for your time today. We will send this recording out at the end once we have it transcribed and corrected. And you guys feel free to visit in on any of these upcoming events that we have posted, and we will see you soon. Drop us a line anytime. We're always happy to help. Thank you, guys.